I believe children, no matter what age they're taken, whether it's at infancy, toddler age, whether it's a teenager, I believe that there's always going to be something missing. There's always going to be the hole in that soul of that child of wanting to know where they come from. It sucked me in, and it became where I started going out at night. I still performed bedtime routines and bath and reading and got them on the school bus and all that. It was like I started drinking at work and continued drinking after work. The division got involved because one day I took my son to Walgreens on a normal trip. We were going shopping. Somebody had smelled alcohol on my breath, even though it was the morning time. I had drank the night before, but being small, I still had a high alcohol content. When the police came, I was always told to be truthful with the police, so I was. I told them, yes, I drank, and it was the night before. They said, well, how did you get here? And I said, well, I drove. I was arrested and jailed on a very, very high bond, even though I had never been in trouble before in my life. Because I had my child with me, I was charged with child endangerment, which was a really hard blow for me because I've always held my children in the highest regard. Once the division got involved, we slowly started losing everything. I never did get bonded out, and I never was heard. I was never given like a lawyer that cared or showed up for me or even cared about me, and I spent 457 days in jail. I think my daughter was 6 months, and my husband used to bring and hold the car seat up in front of which window he knew was mine, so I could see the baby, and my son would wave to me.
It was very difficult. You know, you lose your soulmate. They took her away, so I had to learn how to live without her. And I didn't know how to do anything. She did everything.
The whole time I was in there, the division started the involvement, and the time started ticking from then. And there were services that they put into place for me, but being locked up, you know, I wasn't even able to adhere to anything that they needed or wanted me to do. And I know that I made a mistake by drinking, but that was my fault. That was on me. I just needed help. I didn't do anything to try to harm or cause harm. There was no abuse or neglect there. And that's just where it started. When I was finally released from the county jail, I was restricted from my own home. I was not allowed in my home, but I was given no other options of where to go. They said, oh, go to a friend's house, go sleep on your cousin's couch or whatever. But the thing is that I didn't have friends like that, and I didn't have cousins. My family are my friends. My family is my unit. That is my home with my husband and our children. So I literally became homeless. They told me if I entered my home that I would be violating a safety plan that had been signed, then we had no legal guidance on what we were signing. We were told we had to sign it or else, like they were gonna take the children. And so we signed. These division workers, they didn't give me pamphlets. They didn't tell me where I could go or what I could do. You know, they just left me there in the cold, in the middle of winter, like with no plan of action or no support whatsoever, like I was a monster. It was December when I was released, and I was staying in my car on the side road of my house, and I was so cold, and I just needed a shower, and I was so desperate to see my children that I snuck in, and I hugged my kids. I took a shower, and I spent the night there, and I was sober, and nothing happened to my children. But you know, they got wind of that because apparently they were surveilling the home. That added to another violation of the safety plan. It literally was hours before there was a knock on the door. It was around Christmas time, and I was in the house because we were decorating the Christmas tree. There was a police officer and there was a DCP&P worker. I was scared to death of who was knocking, so I ran upstairs to hide in a toy chest. And my son kept coming up and down the stairs, giving me blow by blow little. He was peeking and sneaking to tell me what was going on. He said, don't worry, Mom. Don't worry, Mommy. Everything's going to be okay, Mom. Everything's going to be okay, Mom. And it wasn't okay. First, I heard my husband scream, which was a scream that you only hear in maybe one of the most horrific horror movies. I knew what was happening right then and there. And then I saw them come to grab some of the clothing out of the closets and start packing a bag. And I don't even think my son knew at the time what was going on. And I think he thought he was coming back the next day, that he just had to go somewhere for the night. And to be honest, so did we. We thought they'd come right back. They made a mistake. When the children were removed, it set something off where we started to just lose everything. We had rental assistance, and we were only offered the rental assistance because children resided in the home, because we were a family. Because they were removed, we lost our rental assistance, which caused us to lose our house. And at that time, we were just a loving, hardworking family, just trying to get better and trying to grow slowly, by working hard and, hopefully not having to need the assistance one day. Having that taken away from us made us go from just being a hardworking, low-income family to a completely impoverished, homeless family. They had us going to anger management classes. They had us going to parenting classes. They had us submitting urine drug screens, even my husband, who has no past history of drug or alcohol abuse. We were given about 16 months to run down through these services and just all of a sudden fix everything that was taken, which at that point, everything was gone. The kids, the house, the job, everything. How do you fix that in 16 months with no assistance?
I completed all their tasks. I did it all within the time frame, and then I was told to give up. Give up, you're not going to be anything. You're not going to do anything right. You can't do it by yourself.
And even though my husband did complete all his services and was working on all this for over a year, he still stood no chance in court because they brought up the safety plan violation from the year prior. And I saw myself as the problem, which made me feel even worse because all I wanted to do was get better and get help. And by taking my kids away just made me suicidal. It made me drink more. And there was nobody to hug me or comfort me or anything because I wasn't even allowed around my own family. I did try to commit suicide, and I was very almost successful. I coded 7 times. They brought me back 7 times because I was supposed to not leave. My husband and I, we had gotten pregnant again. We feel like it was just the biggest blessing in the world. And of course, it was a little boy, just like our firstborn son. And, unfortunately, just because we had a history and some of the other circumstances that were going on in the home at the time between my mother and I, when I gave birth to Gianni, the division came in and removed them because we had a history. Like we're never supposed to move on or reproduce again. So I entered a Mommy and Me treatment program, and I fought and I got our son back, Gianni. And while I was there, I was able to tend to my recovery, my healing, my counseling. It was 24/7. I went to every group and class I could possibly attend. There was a daycare attached. So it was wonderful because they allowed me to put him into the developmental center rather than daycare while I was doing my recovery work. And I could still take care of my child, and he could still be where he belonged as an infant with his mom. 6 months into treatment, I had a little surprise that I ended up having another little baby in my belly. And this time, it was a little girl. And I was able to take both of those children home with me and have custody and have the division leave my life. And since then, I've had another little girl. And here we are. I never stopped emailing or texting the adoptive parents, and I never would get a reply. Every couple years, I would get a picture maybe, and just to see that they were smiling or that they were okay, gave me some comfort. But then the picture stopped, and I always wondered why. So one morning, I was begging because they have 3 full siblings. And I said, if not for us, for the siblings, please. And I got a text back saying, your children need you. I realize that we are not enough. They are suffering. And the only reason why they re-entered my life was because they simply needed us. So upon reunification with them, it was a beautiful moment, but it was also a very sad moment because I did find my son struggling with I don't know if you want to call it a disease or a condition called trichotillomania, which is the pulling out of one's own hair. He was missing both set of eyelashes, both of his eyebrows, and half of his head of hair. He looked like, at first I thought he had cancer. My daughter was then now 6, and she was just so happy to meet me. But I was also met with the fact that she had a lot of psychological issues and problems, and she was full of rage and violence and horrible language, and she was suicidal at the age of 6. After this initial meeting, we slowly but surely graduated into them coming over. They met their siblings, and we started integrating in weekends, and the weekends turned into sleepovers every weekend. And we have been getting them every weekend, and you could begin to see the changes in the healing in my children. My son stopped plucking and pulling, and his hair was growing back everywhere. And my daughter, I asked the adoptive parents if it was okay if me and my husband had her reevaluated and we'd pay for it, and we did. And she was put on proper medications, and they continued to heal and blossom, and we are now a blended family.
It's very beautiful. You know, it's something that you've always wanted. I think we've adapted and overcome everything at this point, and tried to make life better, you know, even though for what we lost.
Nobody took a look back to see, like, what was this family, what was our family like before the division got involved? What about all the happy memories? What about the Disney trips? What about that they went to every doctor's appointment? That we fulfilled every need? Like, what was our before story? They looked at a police report, or like us at our worst moment, or me when I made a mistake. I made a mistake, and that mistake cost me everything. I was looked like down upon, like because I was struggling with drinking. Because of that, I was a bad parent. They don't go hand in hand. They don't. Poverty even doesn't make you a bad parent. Struggling doesn't make you a bad parent, bad mother.